Hello, welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I'm Renee. I'm the host of this podcast. I just started a minute ago and was talking and was having a good time. So happy that the sound's working. But I touched something on the screen and it completely messed it up. So I'm back. I'm here. All the same to you, right? But I just have to get things like that out of my system sometimes so I can talk. And what is that all about? What is sharing about? Why do women with ADHD, sometimes children with ADHD, maybe men with ADHD, why do they want to share? Why do people call it oversharing? Is it fair for people to call it oversharing? Maybe sharing is just fine. Maybe it's just the right amount. Maybe it's not, and maybe it's not about the amount. So I wanted to explore that a bit. That can be part of ADHD, is analyzing. Some people might call it overanalyzing, but we might just call it analyzing. We're learning. And with sharing, I'm just going to call it sharing. With sharing, there might be reasons for sharing information. One might be that you need to explain to somebody what happened. You need to because you might be misjudged. Somebody might say, why did you do this? And you think, oh, actually, that's not what I did. I did this, or I did do that, but this is why. And you're explaining, you're having a need to be understood because you weren't understood. If you do that, raise your hand. If you don't think you do that, maybe notice in conversations with other people if you ever do it, because there are so many parts of ADHD. Well, for one, many of us didn't even know we had ADHD until recently, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and we're still learning. And there are so many parts of ADHD, like time blindness. I didn't think I had it. And then I learned more about it. and it's not just like you notice because you think, oh yeah, I do that. It's you're actually in a situation and you realize that you're doing it. So that's what you could, or you might figure out with ADHD or with oversharing or with sharing, is that you have a need to share. You have a need to be understood. Or do you have so many thoughts in your brain? These thoughts are here. You need to, just like if you have the hyperactive ADHD, you need to move your body. Sometimes you need to move those thoughts out of your head so you can think about something else. Like when I came on here, I told you about, I don't know if I told you, but the sound first, I had this on mute and did a sample recording. And then I got that working. And then I accidentally pushed something on my screen and the video was gone. And it was trying to record my screen, which I didn't know was possible in this program. I'm not in Zoom, I'm in Ecamm. I'm sharing again. So giving details, why do we do that? Why do we do that? Do we do it because it's fun to connect? It's fun to get to know somebody better. And maybe if they hear more about you, they might know you better. Or do you just have a need to get those thoughts out so you can think clearly about the other thing that's important? I mentioned this many episodes ago, but as a child, I'm not a child anymore, obviously, but as somebody who was a child who needed to raise my hand often, who needed to participate in class often, and who often blurted out the answer. I kind of am okay with that word. Blurted out the answer because the information needed to get out so badly that I didn't even have the control or even the knowledge that it was happening. I was saying something out loud before I realized it. And it didn't feel bad then. That felt normal. And you're learning in school what life is like and what school's like and what's okay and what's not. And you get feedback from mostly teachers when you're younger. I don't know if the kids care if you blurt unless you're interrupting them. Analyzing again. But the teachers will say things to you. And I have a daughter who's a school teacher or was a school teacher. I have a mother who is a school teacher, my grandfather. And as I've seen them in the classroom or talk about students, there are some that are bigger struggle to teach than others, or that are more challenging for maintaining order in the classroom. And if you're trying to teach something and somebody keeps blurting out the answer or keeps giving the answer before the other children get a chance to even think about it themselves, I can see how that could be a problem. It's also a big problem for people who have the need to connect, have the need to get that information out. And if you do that, then you can relax. It builds up. If you haven't experienced this, if you're a teacher and you haven't experienced it and want to know what it's like for a child, because it still happens to me as an adult, is it builds up inside. Your heartbeat rises. You have all this pent up energy and you think, but I want to say this, I want to say this. And it might be because you just feel so connected. You're so engaged with what the teacher's talking about that you want to participate. You need to be a part of it. And there may not be other adequate ways to explain it, but that's the best I can do, is that you just, it's just so much energy inside. It's like, it's like a child who has a hyperactive ADHD that's standing up and jumping and bouncing and saying sounds, and it's that energy coming out. I don't know if any of you have done this as an adult or as a child, or have a child who does this, because ADHD is highly hereditary. But if you have a child who hums while they eat or moves while they eat, that could be that energy. That could be it's soothing, but it's some kind of energy in my mind. And this isn't scientific. This is Renee-ific. But it's just, that's what it feels like, is that you need to move. And so if you ever look at your body, if you have the hyperactive ADHD, or you used to, some of this, sometimes it changes for people over time, boys and girls, men and women, where they had the hyperactive component when they were younger and they don't anymore. In fact, my psychiatrist, and I'm not saying that he knows everything, but he told me it wasn't as common for women with ADHD to have the hyperactive body like I do, that a lot of times that you grow out of that. I look at my two boys, one doesn't think he had ADHD, but I mean, maybe we can talk about that, but he's a doctor, so I think if he really studied it, and maybe he does think he has it, and I shouldn't be declaring this out loud, but he definitely had the impulse control. He definitely had the body and the brain that needed to move, be engaged, cause problems at school, blurting out answers, the whole bit. And he doesn't do that anymore. He has a lot of control. And as he became a teenager, that mellowed out. My younger brother, who was told by everyone that he was hyperactive when he was younger, became this very docile, peaceful, kind, gentle teenager. He was jumping off of furniture all the time, like my grandchildren do when they come to our house. Thankfully, this house, sharing again, thankfully this house came with some leather sofas that are so comfortable. They're really beat up by either cats or dog scratches. I don't know. I don't have pets, but they're kind of beat up, so we can enjoy the comfort of them. We can enjoy the capacity in the living room. We're not big, designy, this needs to look a certain way with furniture. We never have been with furniture, but it makes it, a little more tolerable to have them jump on. It's like every sofa and chair in there is a trampoline to them, but they have that energy, and that can change over time. Or you could become an adult and you notice that while you're talking, the whole time I'm talking, my hands are moving. My hands are moving with my words to the beat of the sound of my words. My knee that you don't see is moving as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's doing that right now, my knee and my foot. At some point as an adult, I didn't know I had ADHD, but I would look, and when I was sitting in a room full of people who were sitting quietly, I was fidgeting in my chair and my foot was just flapping. And I usually had my foot over my knee or under my knee or something. Another part of ADHD is often we raise the foot, the knee, whatever, to be more comfortable. Might even raise the arm, not even realize it. You're just talking to people and your arm's up high, or you're laying down and your arm's up high. Don't know why. I've heard reasons like hypermobility. I don't know. I mean, it might be possible, that if you have ADHD, the hyperactive, you could be more hypermobile. But I know as a yoga teacher, I know a lot of people who are hypermobile who don't have ADHD at all. They don't have a hyperactive nature at all. They're just hypermobile. They just have a lot of room in their joints, and it could be bone structure. It could be hereditary, whatever that's called, passed down from their ancestors. So back to sharing. The impulse control part of the hyperactive impulsivity component or type of ADHD isn't just the body. It's what happens in the body when you try to keep things in, whether they're thoughts, whether they're words, whether it's tension building up because you're excited or tension building up because you're overstimulated. Have you ever had certain sounds that just start making you feel like this? And you think, I can't be here anymore. I can't be here anymore. I need to move. I need to move. I need to move. Or certain environments, not as calming for your brain. Overstimulation, that may cause you to need to bolt too. So there are different things that build up the energy. But maybe you don't relate to the hyperactive part body-wise. Maybe you relate to the need to say words when they're in your head or express ideas. And maybe it is simply to just be able to focus on the next thing, because this whirlwind, this tornado is going on in your mind. And if you say it, you can get it out. I learned years later when my oldest daughter was in high school, that you can get those ideas out by not saying them. How old must I have been? I was 25 when I had her. Let's say she was 16. Got to add real quick, 31. Is that right? No, wait, 41. I didn't have her at 15. Okay, not saying if anybody did have their child at 15, that's a bad thing. But I just need to move this because I'm seeing something. Oh my goodness. I'm seeing something. It's that impulse. I see something behind me. I'm trying to change it. But back to that idea. How else can you keep a thought? How else can you get rid of a thought, but not worry that it's going to be lost? Pretty easy to think of if we think of just being by ourselves, right? If we're thinking, I need to buy potato chips and chili, it doesn't really go together. Whatever it is that you have on your mind for, I need to buy that when I go to the store, you would write it down, right? Or you would say it out loud to Alexa, or however you give yourself memos to remember to take care of that. And if you do that, if you write it down, unless you lose what you write down, which could be easy to do if you have ADHD, if you lose the paper, writing it on your phone, on a phone app, or however you do it. So if you write it down, there's a better chance that you'll remember it. And once you do that, your brain can relax, because if you're thinking, oh, I got to do this, if I'm going to do this, what if I forget, what if I forget? And it'll be hard to think of something else. So writing it down. Well, the same thing works in a public place. If you're in a meeting, if you're in a workshop, if you're in a learning situation, a classroom, and you feel like you need to say this, hopefully you have the impulse control to not say it before you realize it. Because still at my age, I do that sometimes in a public setting. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And when I analyze it, it is more because I feel so in line with who the person is that's speaking, with whatever they're saying, that it's like, yes, and, it's just like, it's such a connection thing. But as a 41-year-old, if my daughter was 16, I'm just laughing because that can be another thing. Details can be important if you have ADHD. But at that time, when I went to back to school night, her teacher said, if you have a question, save it till the end. It was only a 10-minute meeting, and then they'd ring the bell and we go to the next class and meet all the teachers at the high school. It was only 10 minutes. But if she had just said, without giving me a method to do it, if she had just said, if you have a question, save it for the end, then if I had a question, I would have been inside going, shaking like crazy. I would have been thinking, I want to say this now. I want to ask it now. It's going to be hard to wait till the end. And I'm not consciously saying that, but that's how my body's responding. But she put a Post-it note on everyone's desk. I don't know if she supplied a pen. She may have. But she said there's a Post-it note on the desk. If you have a question, write it down. If you have another question, write it down. At the end, if I haven't answered it and we have time, ask your question or come up to me afterwards, because we had that 5-minute break in between. It was brilliant. It relaxed my brain like crazy because I got it out of my brain. I didn't worry that I'd forget. I didn't worry that I'd walk out wishing I had the answer and I didn't. What is so important that I needed to know right that second? Who knows? But that's how important it can feel in our bodies. So having a tool like that can be really helpful if you need to share in a public setting. What about social settings? Why would we need to share with friends? It can be different friends or people in the store or wherever you go. If you go to work or if you're on a train. I just went to Washington, D.C. and rode a subway. They call it the train, but it's really the metro. Trying to learn the lingo. And I'm such a small town girl that this is like, whoo. And then directionally challenged because I got dropped off at the first metro station and had to know how to go from that metro station to the next one, which was a few blocks away. And directions don't always make sense. If it's a new situation, I needed my son or my husband, the ones that are super love maps and it makes sense to them or can look at where the sun is and know where they are. That's just not what I do. But it was very confusing getting to the next station, but I made it. And then I asked the 2 youngest guys there which side of the tracks I needed to be on because I couldn't figure that out. And I just figured they were probably the least dangerous if there was any danger. But back to this, I don't even know what my point was with bringing in Washington, D.C. and going to my uncle's house. But back to where I was you might talk to people out in public. That was it. Is you might sit on an airplane and talk to somebody. You might sit on an airplane and say, I just need my brain to relax. Put on your headphones and ignore people. Or give them the space they need. But sometimes you're on a flight, somebody wants to connect with you. Sometimes you're on a flight and you might want to connect with them. And you might think, no, I never want to. Or yes, I always want to. But it can change from time to time. So if you do, why is that? Why do you want to connect? Do you feel some joy inside when you connect with somebody? Do you like to see them smile? I do. That has been my latest thing is when I walk on a plane, seeing who I can make eye contact with and smile. Some flights have had nobody look at me. And I get that. I mean, I can get on the plane and then, bring out my phone and think I need to put it in airplane mode. Or I'm going to text my family and tell them I'm on the plane and take a picture. Whatever that is. I get that not everyone's going to look at me. But some people are just done with life when they're on the plane and they don't want to look at anybody. They don't want to connect. So I look for a friendly face. And the last 2 flights, I had people, even in first class, and I'm not judging first class people, but usually if they look at you, my experience has been they glare at you. So I had people in first class both flights smile. So you might have a need to connect. You might find within a few minutes you grew up in the same town or whatever. Not with me. I grew up in a town of 3,000 people. It hardly ever happens. But when I went to my uncle's memorial and mentioned we moved 3 years ago from California. Oh, where? By the second city, Pasadena. The man talking to these 2 older gentlemen, one of them said, I was born in Pasadena in Huntington Hospital. I said, so is one of my daughters. I mean, instantly connected. Joy, 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 right? But when you're talking to people who are new to you, how much do you share? That's another part of oversharing that I didn't really consider. And when I've been reading the ADHD subs on Reddit, for some, the oversharing problem is I am sharing information that I regret sharing. I am saying things to people I don't know, and I've gone a little too far. I've embarrassed myself, or maybe I've divulged something I shouldn't say. And so then they have regret. So that can be a form of oversharing. is that you're saying things that maybe aren't appropriate, a little TMI, too much information that maybe would be comfortable with a good friend, but not somebody you didn't know, or saying things about other people that maybe you shouldn't say. And that's a balance. It's hard for moms sometimes because as a mom, to connect with people, you compare experiences sometimes. And especially like when you first have a baby, you're talking to all your friends who just had a baby and what it's like to have that baby, or what was the hospital experience like, or all these kinds of things. And then your children get older and, oh, my little toddler, and he won't go to sleep. And you can talk so freely about these children because they are babies and toddlers. As they get older, you start to realize there needs to be a balance. They are human beings that might want some privacy. They may not want the whole world to know what their potty training experience was like, especially if they're older and it's a challenge that might be embarrassing for them. I raised my first, I would say 2, 3 with no internet. And then, the internet, when we got our first computer in 1999, the internet was out there before that. It was very archaic, if any of you remember. Even when we got our first computer, it was all the weird signs that AOL makes when it was kind of cool, actually. It was like your own little theme music for getting your computer to log on. If you ever want to watch an old movie, if you don't know what this sounds like, it's kind of fun. But it's kind of like in You've Got Mail. You get to hear the stuff in You've Got Mail. But when we started finding social media or connecting with people that either we didn't know or were out in public, people from the past, whatever, you start to realize my kids don't want me to be. I had teenagers by the time I got on Facebook, by the time Facebook was a thing. And I realized I need to respect their privacy. I can reel that in. I don't need to share details of their lives. And it's been interesting to see other mothers who started social media either after they had children, no, before they had children, or when their babies were little, because they might say everything as a baby age or a toddler age, as it whatever. And I'm watching, kind of thinking, when are you going to realize that this child doesn't want this information out here anymore? They may want you to check in with them about it. And I've made mistakes. I've said things to people where my kids will say, don't do that. And one of my sons, even when we got on Facebook, he said, not only did if he posted something, he didn't want me to comment on it. And he was a teenager, he's figuring things out. He didn't want me to comment on it or like it. And of course, unlike back there, they didn't have hearts and all that stuff. But he didn't even want evidence that I was on it. He let me be his friend. but that was the level of comfort for him, and I needed to respect that. So doing that in real life with talking, sometimes we have to navigate that. Is this appropriate to say? And even with saying things that are funny, if you tend to bring in humor to your conversations. I'm not particularly the funniest person unless I'm with certain people who think I'm funny. Then all of a sudden I feel like I'm funny. I can think I'm funny, but I feel like most people don't think I am. And I'm not a jokey, like some people are just super funny. Yeah, not even close. But for me, do you ever try to be funny or say something that a lot of people will think is funny, but it's insulting to somebody? Or it might be something that they would laugh about with you, but then you say it in a group of friends and they're smiling, but they're really not happy inside. They're feeling humiliated. They're feeling a sense of shame. And so observing all of the reasons that we share, and a lot of times the things that people might say to be funny can hurt someone's feelings. So recognizing that and noticing what you say, when you say it, what purpose is. And sometimes you learn the hard way. I learned the hard way in college. A friend told me one time, she said, whenever we're with this group of friends, you have, not every time, but you've said some things that maybe we would joke about, but when you're saying it, it's embarrassing, it's humiliating, and my feelings are hurt. And I thought, you were totally right. Like, it was totally inappropriate for me to do that. I feel bad. I was doing it for my own praise because it would make me feel better, look better, whatever. We learn as we go, hopefully. But recognizing why we share, why we say things is important. And if you feel like you tend to say things that even are just sharing too much about your own life and you wish you hadn't, try to just let go of the guilt or shame or whatever embarrassment you might have and just find a way to notice it before it happens again. And maybe think, I want to be a little more careful this time. I want to sit here and just breathe a little more slowly and just wait and try not to say it or bring up a new topic or ask that person a question and about themselves and get that away from yourself. And that's a great way to connect with people, is to ask them questions and let them talk and talk and talk, and they can share. But yeah, there are so many reasons to share. And, just like the analyzing, you might like to analyze and you might find out that some people would love to do that with you. Other people think, why is she doing that? Or is she trying to prove me right? Is she trying to tell me she knows more than I do? And a lot of these things can be on them. It doesn't have to be your problem if they take it wrong. But if you can look in someone's eyes, often you can tell how they're responding. And text, internet, all that way of communicating can be more challenging because you can't see their eyes. You don't know how they're taking it in. You certainly can't see what's in their brain. You can't tell if it's causing them discomfort or if they're getting the wrong idea. And sometimes people do. But I'm just trying to be cautious, even in your mode of communication, how much you share, how you share. I've been leaving more voice audio texts instead of written because, one, you can share so much more easily, and two, your tone of voice can be picked up. And that can be another thing with sharing. Do you have a hard time sharing if it's not complete? If somebody sends you a text or an email and says whatever they're saying, they ask you a question or they say something and you have a response that would be very long texts and you think, and like if I sit down, this is going to take a while. Honestly, I have sat down to write texts and they can take a long time if you're wanting to be complete with them. If you want to answer in a way that feels satisfactory to you. And sometimes you might just avoid answering because you don't want to just do a few sentences, leave a few sentences that don't make sense. So maybe just texting back or forgiving yourself if you don't text back right away. I don't think we always have to answer people as quickly as they think we do, but responding with a heart or I'll be back later to respond or whatever, or I'll talk to you about this next time I see you, or leaving an audio text. And if you're worried you're going to say something dumb in an audio text, it can be tricky. Sometimes just using the phone app to do that, like from the text app or from the messenger app. Sometimes it's clunky and you do it and you accidentally send it and you didn't really want to send it. And you can't always stop the sending. So you can use your voice memo app if you have one. In an iPhone, that's what it's called. I don't know what it's called on a different kind of phone. But you can make your message that way and then just forward it. It's kind of like going to your notes and writing up a text that you're not sure how you're going to word it, or you write part of it and then you need to come back later. But you can use that as your scratch paper. Do you guys know the word scratch paper? It's kind of where you write your notes, but it's not in a notebook. You can throw it away later. It's what they used to call paper that maybe the teacher, like you use in the back of a paper and they cut it into fourths and you get this little piece of paper. Or it was used, it was a way of recycling back then, or reusing. And, but yeah, you can practice or communicate in a different way that doesn't feel complete, because that's something I completely identify with. I want to write back. I want to connect. And sometimes because I don't have time to do it, it can take a week or two, which is really hard for me to realize, especially if you forget things, because you intended to do it that night and then you remember the next morning, I didn't do it, but I don't have time now, but I'll do it later. And then you remember really late and then you can't do it. And, it can go through that cycle. But we're all doing the best we can. And if sharing is something that's important to you, it's something you love to do, finding friends who love to share with you is a great thing. If you don't have somebody in your life that you can share with, even if it's not in your family, it could be somebody that you connect with otherwise. It could be in a Facebook group with other people who share how they dread taking a shower. And you're like, oh my goodness, I do too. I do that with my ADHD. Or however you connect with people, you can connect even with strangers, obviously online. People know that, right? And in public, you're at the line at the store. If you want to say something to the cash register lady, or man or guy or girl or whoever they are, they may not want to talk to you, but kind of like the little thing of, can I get someone to smile at me, or will anybody smile at me on a plane? I like to find ways to connect with them if I can, whether I'm talking about something that I'm buying or mention what time of day it is. Are you ready to go home? If you like to connect with people, you can do that without sharing a lot. But you're sharing a connection, which is super wonderful if you love to be around people. If you're an extrovert and you love to get your energy from being around people, and maybe not just being around them, I think connecting with people. I don't know. Maybe that's why it's hard. I mean, obviously everyone's different, but the introvert, extrovert, and the introvert is like it's sucking out your energy to be around people. But if I'm around a lot of people and I can't connect with them, that's harder than just being around a lot of people. It doesn't always just satisfy me just to be around people. And I don't know where you are in that. There are a lot of levels to extrovert, introvert, and I'm just adding one that probably isn't even on the levels. But I think that is it for today. I just wanted to kind of explore that with you and get you thinking, because even if that's not part of your ADHD, it might be for one of your children. It might be for a friend of yours or your mother or your father or anybody in your life. And I know with children, sometimes their need to do that is multi-layered too. If you have a young child who talks and talks and talks and talks and talks, and you need a little quiet without the talking, you might look and see, why do they need to talk? Do they really want me to interact and say, that's so exciting, and give a hug? Are they looking for that connection and you're not giving it to them? Or do they love to analyze? Do they love to think through things? Do they love to tell you about something that they did? Do they like to just talk out loud? And it might be. Actually, that's another episode I'm making. I'm really excited about. In fact, if you're watching, I got a new I've got a new planner. If you have ADHD, sometimes it's fun to get a planner, even if you already have one, because you might think, if I just had a different planner, my life would be more organized, or if I just had one. And actually, I don't use them that much. I use them more as notebooks, but it's a good idea. And this one was on sale. It was one of those September through next year ones, and I bought it in October. But I wrote down my thoughts, speaking of writing down what's in your mind instead of just saying it, because often I have ideas for the podcast. I come on here and I forget. And if I write it on a Google Doc, I don't know, sometimes it's not as easy to pick up. But this time I just wrote on 2 pages of this, and they were, just days of the week pages. But it's another episode about, now I already forgot what it's about. Let me go to October. Oh, it's about the power of the spoken word. The power of the spoken word. And it's not really about sharing or oversharing at all, but it's just about speaking, talking, hearing a spoken voice. And it was just an idea that came to me, and I really want to explore it. So that'll be the next episode. I'm not going to feel bad about being locked into it like I usually do, if I announce something, because sometimes I forget what I say. Oh, I'll go into this more. I forget, or then I think, but that's not what I feel like talking about. I reject it. So hopefully I won't do that. But speaking of sharing, this is the last thing I want to say is I want to invite you to share with me. And that could be just going to my website. There's different ways to connect with me. If you're on my email list, and I'm not always consistent with the newsletters, even though I want to be, but if you're on my email list, you already have my email address and you could email me and share something with me. If you're not on my email list, you can go to my website, and if you sign up for any free thing, you'll get an email from me and you can reply and say, I know this isn't what you asked at the end of this email, but I'm writing to share. You could do that. Third thing is on, I think if you click about, there's a thing that says you can email Renee. I don't know if it says click to email Renee. If you click on it, it will take you right to your email window with my email address at the top, and you can email me. But what I'd like you to do is share something that you want to share. It could be something I talked about and you think, that made me think of this and I want to share with you. Because I listen to podcasts a lot. And when I listen, I think, oh, I want to write to him. I want to write to her. I want to tell him this. And I have done it in the past, but most of the time I forget. Or I feel kind of weird because the only way I've known to write them is through Instagram on, DM. And a few times you get comments back, which is fine. Like, it doesn't need to be a lot. Sometimes I just need to let them know, or they say, I love that, or they might, I don't know, not a lot of engagement, and that's okay. It's not like I'm super looking for engagement, but sometimes it's just a heart, and that's okay too. But a lot of times I think, well, I don't want to burden them. Like, they're more famous podcasters, so they might get a lot of DMs. And I do have an Instagram account that you could do that if that's the easiest one. It's just Inspiring Women with ADHD. If you go there, please don't judge me. I just have some podcast episode art that I played with a while ago, like a long time ago, maybe 80 episodes ago. And it was fun to do. They don't really show up that well on Instagram, and I didn't continue. I have new art that I use now on YouTube, but that's, neither here nor there. But you could DM me there. It would be me, not a bot that replies, because I'm not paying for anything like that. And the other thing is, what was the other thing? So you could email, you could DM. Oh, the other thing is my email address. If you want to just remember, it's hello at renee-allen.com. And the dash is just there because reneeallen.com was already gone when I looked for it. And I had to use a dash, and I didn't want to use a net or a org. So that's it. It's the same as my website. If you want to just write from there or go on there, it's renee-allen.com. The dash is just the line that's up higher. You probably know that, but I don't know. You never know. But the reason I want you to do this is because sometimes we think if we connect with somebody, we have a fear. And we fear, like, I want to connect with them. I want to let them know this. I want to share this with them. But we don't do it because we think that's information they're not asking for. Like, they don't really want to hear all this extra. So I'm giving them too much information, and I don't need to do that. And then you feel a little like, why do I do that? Why do I need to connect? Why do I need to, And I'd love it if we were able to let go of that shame or that fear and just make the effort and try. And so you share with somebody who wasn't welcoming it, and they give you the little heart, or maybe they loved it and they gave you a little heart. But you got to be you. And that's the most important thing, is you get to be you. And sometimes you might need to reel it in, like if it's am I sharing something I'm going to regret later, or am I sharing something with somebody who would rather not have me do it? You might learn that and then not do it with them again. But it's just acting on that need and feeling okay about it. And that's what I want you to do with me. And this whole idea sparked this morning, speaking of sharing. Here I go again, but it's okay because, we can be us. But this morning I got an email from somebody, and she had sent an email yesterday asking a question and inviting me to attend a workshop about Pinterest. And so I answered the question. It was like, what's your biggest goal right now with email? And that's another thing. So she's an email marketing person. And, like I told you, I'm not very consistent with my newsletters. So, so I was realizing like, oh yeah, there's a lot of goals right now because I've been a little behind, or not behind, just not consistent. But back to this, I wrote that to her. I gave her the answer to the question she wanted. She also invited us to attend the Pinterest class, and I added in there. So this is my sharing. What I wanted to share with her was I actually am already working with that person. I bought her course last year. I attended your class with her last year. So I wanted her to know, like, I'm going to attend, but I actually am already working with her, but I need a little push because I have been inconsistent with my Pinterest pinning too. But then I also shared, because I feel like it's important for people to know what's going on, is that I will attend, but it won't be on the computer. So this, so in my mind, I'm thinking, is she asking for this? Does she want to know if I'm going to be on my phone driving, or if I'm going to be on my laptop smiling at a desk or something? I don't even have a desk. No, she's not asking that. But I had a need to share those details. So I said, I'm going to sign up. I will attend. I've already worked with her, but this will give me a little motivation to keep going with my pinning. And, she may even be teaching something new that I haven't heard yet. And I'll be driving back from hot yoga, but I'll listen on the phone, and then I might sign off and come back on once I get home, because the internet connection is not great around our house, or the cellular. So all these things of information that she doesn't need. But there was a little bit, as I thought about it, because I did think about just, like, delete these paragraphs and just send, why are you sharing details? But sometimes when people do these live Zooms and stuff, they don't always pay attention to people joining late. And so you might get there and you're just sitting there waiting. So I might sign out, come back, and not be able to get back in. So I thought that might help me too. But I'm really glad that even if that wasn't the thing that kept me sharing, I'm glad I did, because when I got her email this morning, she said, I love details. Thank you so much for the details. Don't you know me? I am, I want these details. And of course, that made me feel really good. That even if she hadn't commented on that, I thought that's a risk that's worth taking, because if you can connect with somebody. And then she started telling me something about, she goes to hot yoga classes. What kind of hot yoga do you teach? And started asking me questions, and we're connecting. And I love that. She's loving that. She wants to know the people on the other side of that email when she sends them an email. And she has that need too. I don't think she has ADHD from what I've seen, but I don't know everything right. But the idea came to me when I heard back that she wanted the details. I thought I should let my listeners know I want details too. Any detail that's come up in your mind today that you might think this is too much detail, write it to me. Send me a message. Share away. Have fun sharing. And it doesn't have to be something totally like, what am I struggling with the most with my ADHD? It can be that, but it can be anything else. It can be anything else that you've ever thought of sharing and you've resisted. I want you to feel like you can just dive in that water and swim away and have fun with it. So that is it for today. Renee-allen.com. If you're not on my email list, you want to find out how to email me. I think it's on like my podcast page, but I don't know. When I click on those, like that's just in Apple Podcasts or just in Amazon Music or Spotify or whatever. I don't know if it actually is, or YouTube. I don't think my email's on YouTube, because I kind of wouldn't, like, you don't want it out there for the world because you always get spam, but it's out there. So anyway, that is it. I have the driest mouth ever because I don't do well with pausing on here while I'm recording. And I'm used to teaching yoga where I talk for a full hour. And it's been about 45 minutes, but thank you so much for listening, for being here. I'm going to get this out today, even though the podcast world says it's best to do it in the morning. It's almost 2:30 and I'm just going to do it now because that's what I need to do. And sometimes we need to act and follow our hearts, right? But thank you. I will be back. I will talk about the value the power of the spoken voice. And it will be something that I think that might not sound intriguing to you. It'll be intriguing. It'll be intriguing. It's something that's super, super helpful to us as human beings. So thank you. And I will see you again. Bye.